What's up, Emmy?
So we just watched this incredible video, this incredible interview with you and Usher, and that was my first time seeing it. So although, Allie and I were chatting, a few weeks ago when she had the interview and I got a little inside scoop, this was my first time seeing the interview, but we're just going to chat for the next few minutes and kind of get the behind the scenes, the girlfriend chat about what it was really like to talk with Usher. And you guys can also ask some questions. So make sure to comment below with any questions, and we'll save the last few minutes at the end to answer some questions. First question for you, Allie. I mean, what was it like? What was your reaction when you first walked into the room and saw Usher? Did you have any, fangirl moments?
Well, first I want to say I'm thrilled that I get to have this conversation with you in front of a lot of our community, because we are really close friends, and I am very grateful for our friendship. We chat almost every single day. So I am excited that many of you that are watching this right now will get a little bit of, like you said, an inside scoop of how Emmy and I call her Emmy for short. I know her name is Emma Lovewell, but that's my nickname for her. It's Allie and Emmy. You see how we get to connect. Also, this is my first time seeing all of you for homecoming. This is a big deal for all of us because Peloton virtual homecoming means so many people get to be a part of this, when in real time, Emmy, as you know, it's a limited amount of folks. So on that note, let's talk about Usher. Now that I've gotten that out of the way and we all feel good. Yes, when I walked through the door and I met Usher, I will say the actual door that I walked through wasn't necessarily the one on set that you saw in that video. It was into his trailer. So this was our first time. I've seen Usher in concert. I've known Usher through the grapevine. We have mutual friends, but I've never met him in person. And so the first time was actually going into his trailer with my team and his team for us to sit down before we met on set. And it was such a vibe. It was a total vibe, because in that, I don't know if y'all noticed, you can tell in this interview right now with me talking to Emmy, I always have energy on the bike, art class at 4:30 today, in this conversation. But when I met Usher, he was the one who kind of set the tone. We talk about bossing up, establishing, the standards and setting the tone. He set the tone, and he's so smooth with his voice. So you might have seen that kind of translate in my body language and my response as a host and as a moderator of conversation. You're kind of taught that. And so I kind of quickly adapted to his like smooth. You call Emmy, you say he's smooth like butter, and it's true, like smooth like butter mentality. That was a trivia
question for everybody, because I took Allie's Usher ride this morning, which was so fun, by the way. Make sure you go take it. But Allie had a little. She's like, which instructor called Usher smooth like butter?
That was her.
That's the
which
answer.
Is so on point.
So I agree with you. He's so smooth.
Yes. Yes. So I guess when I first walked through on set, when they were like, and action, and I walked through the door for the first time, but after meeting him earlier that day, I think it was more of, he actually said to me after we did a couple takes, he was like, so let's stay in it. Like he almost coached me. Like I'm the coach to many of us, and you're the coach to many of the folks on, during this live. And he was actually coaching me, which I really appreciated, in a sense of like, let's stay in it, in terms of the cameras are still rolling. Let's stay connected. He always made eye contact with me. He was like looking me in my eyes. We stayed connected, and it made for a seamless transition into the conversation to really connect with him on a deeper level.
Wow. I love that. I can also imagine him. I would love to ask him if he had a fanboy moment before meeting you, because I feel like he probably just had to like get in that zone before walking into that room with you, because you have so much energy and you are amazing as well. So, I mean, I'll ask Usher that next time I see him. So.
See, everyone, that's your best friend. That's your best friend. Emmy, thank you for recognizing.
All right, so let's talk about the big announcement. So Usher, so casually and smoothly released Dance Cardio and Usher collaboration. What can we expect from these classes? Will you co-choreograph it? Like, give us the scoop. What's the deal?
So fun fact, girlfriend, I did not know that was going to happen. It actually came up. I think that was on the table. The conversation was on the table before we went into the shoot. And I think that he felt like my vibe, like maybe he was fanboying out a little bit on me, in a sense of like, he was like, no, this is legit. He obviously has a Peloton. He's obsessed with many of our instructors as much as we all are. He loves the content. And so it was more of our connection that at the end, the producer was like, I think there's something else you want to say, Usher. And I was like, oh, is there? And I'm looking like, I've memorized my script. I've like worked out questions in my head. I prepared for like at least 12 hours the day before to make sure that I was connected with him. And I, of course, respected and valued his time by being prepared. Stay ready, so I ain't got to get ready. You know how it is. And so when they said, is there something else that Usher's going to add something else? I actually was shocked in the moment that was going to happen. I had no idea. So in terms of the lowdown on the skinny of like what's about to go down, we're shaping it up right now. I know many of the members, we were watching the video with all of you in real time prior to this conversation. Many of you were like, I want to dance with Usher. I want to dance with Usher too. So we get to all dance with Usher. And so our team, yes, Emmy Lovewell, we all get to dance with Usher. And so our team's taking it away. And we're going to go ahead, of course, like we did with the conversation and connecting. I flew to LA to meet with him. And so for that conversation. So we're going to do what's safe and, of course, what both teams can create to have the best experience for all of you, all of our members in mind, so that when that dance cardio comes out, you're gonna be like breaking it down. Okay. I may not look like Usher, but my whole objective is any of that content that I'm a part of, I want all of us to feel like we're Usher in like the 1990s, 2000s, and 2020.
Hell yes. Well, speaking of, I'm just like, my brain is going through like all of his music videos and all of his songs. And I'm like, ooh, which dance would I want to do? Do you have a favorite Usher music video that you love?
So I think growing up, one of the ones as a dancer, so fun fact, I don't know, for many of our new members, we've shared this throughout the years, but Emmy Lovewell and I have been, we've been friends for almost over 15 years since we were really young. And we've known each other that long. We've been friends. Young. We've been going to eat. Girl, I'm young.
No, we were young and we still are young. So,
Yeah. Forever young. I was like, you're very young. So that means I'm young too. But no, we've known each other. We've been going to birthday brunches for a very long time and celebrating each other's lives and dancing together quite a bit. And so the fun fact of all of that is that through this entire time, we have had this affinity towards dance, and we paid homage to many of the dancers before. So my favorite Usher video is the one that made me more of an Usher crusher than anything. It was You Got It Bad, because he took Gene Kelly's Dancing in the Rain and he made it like, he put his own spin on it and he made it up to date. And of course, he Usherified it, if you know what I mean. He Usherified that moment where you were just like, you were glued to the screen because he looked so good, he danced so good, he sings so well. And then of course you're like, wait a minute, this is an ode to Gene Kelly. And as a dancer, you respect those that come before you. You're like, hello, this is a big deal. And so I would say that was one of my favorite, although Bad Girl is something that that was a song I danced with in this little group that I was a part of called Sugar and Spice growing up. It was You Got It Bad, like the Dancing in the Rain, the Gene Kelly moment that for me is like my all-time, I am an Usher crusher.
Oh, love that. Usher crusher. That's like I didn't even know that. I love that. That's a thing.
Wait, you didn't know that became a thing. I won't take credit. Y'all know we always, all of us are friends. And so Dennis is one of our close friends. I talk to Dennis quite often as well, as you know. And I was talking to him right before my ride and he was like, all right, go be an Usher crusher. And I was like, can I steal that? Can I use that? And he was like, of course. Dennis is always like, he is the witty one. And so I was like, great. And on my ride, I was like, all right, Usher crusher. He's like, now we're Usher crusher.
I love that. Anyway, I was thinking about, so one of my favorites is Usher's You Make Me Wanna. I feel like that song is just like such a vibe and I could dance to that song for sure. So you just brought up the fact that obviously he's a singer, he's an amazing dancer, and he's an athlete and entertainer, right? And you talked about that a lot in your ride, which I took this morning. I did a little sessions with like 50 people, lots of high fives on the leaderboard, super fun. So how did you, first of all, how did you make the playlist? Because he has so many tracks. Like I didn't know what you were going to play, and everyone I'm like, oh yes, this song, and then still there's like so many more that, weren't played. So what was your process like making the playlist?
I was like, this is confessions and I need a confessions part 2. For sure. I need like a part 2 of this ride. This was by far one of the hardest, more challenging playlists to create because at 30 minutes, so many hits, so many people love so many different songs. I was like, should I do right by most of the songs that maybe everyone else wants to hear? Should I play my favorite songs? Like which songs do I forego? I switched around that playlist multiple times. And then I knew that Usher was going to be on the ride. He was on the ride. He rode live with everyone that day, that night.
Cool.
And so that was a little bit of pressure because although him and I had talked after we had our conversation in the studio, we had been talking since then. And one of the things that came up, I was like, what do you want to see from my ride? And he was like, honestly, like, I want you to do you. You always do very well. Like, that's why this collaboration was created between you and I. And so it was still a little bit of that pressure on my shoulder of just like, okay, he's going to be on. Everyone else has their favorite songs and I have my favorite songs. So I was trying to do justice for every single person, but also make sure that it fit into the roadmap, right? Like that there was a moment. And to be completely transparent, I don't know, did I tell you this? I don't think I told you this after the ride. Yeah, maybe I did. Maybe it was the next morning. I don't know if we FaceTime, but right before the ride in the studio, I'd planned out my entire class plan. I'd been planning it out since I've known that I had this artist series for a couple months now. Right before the ride, at least 20 minutes before, and this is something we don't do often, but when it hits you, right? And this was a moment where it all connected for me. I was getting dressed and I was like, wait a minute. I know how I'm going to do this ride. And that's when I broke the ride down. It was literally like maybe 20 minutes before the ride. That's when I broke the ride down into 3 parts, because y'all know, and you know this, I mean, like, I'm all about intersectionality, like all of us being multifaceted, multidimensional. Like, we want to entertain that conversation. And so the funny thing is, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the roadmap. It's 3 parts. Let's celebrate him as an artist. We use the words of the music and add on hella resistance. And then part 2, he's a dancer. Like, how can we keep the tempo, being in a dancer, being in the pocket of the music? And of course, being a performer overall, you have to be an athlete. Like, he talks about how it's hard in the conversation. And so it was literally 20 minutes before that the roadmap just became a little clearer on how I can offer it up in the class plan. And so it again, it was some of those times, as you know, when it hits you, it just hits you. And so our team was fantastic in making sure that got into up on the screen. And I was able to deliver something that I was trying to control myself. So I was being a little bit more of the Usher mentality than like Ally Love. I was like trying to embody all of it.
I loved it. And I loved that class structure. And you better believe I was trying to sing along while going through those heavy climbs. And I was on the struggle bus a couple times, but it was so fun. So, okay, back to my list of questions. What was your main takeaway from meeting this incredibly talented person, and also, your experience as a performer as well? Some of the things he talked about with mistakes and rest, and he had so many great, one-liners. And what about his process did you relate to as a performer?
So I'll say a couple of things. I think in terms of what are some of the things that I left with or walked away with, the number one thing that was really important to me and that I've held on since the live conversation, and I think what makes Peloton so special, and you and I identify on this completely, like we subscribe to this completely, is that when you're on the leaderboard, when you're on the mat, the tread, the bike, when you're in meditation and you're just sitting there and you're in tune with the Peloton community, everyone is one. Everyone comes together and it evens the playing field. You're on that leaderboard at the same time. Nothing really matters outside of the fact that you're there in real time. And so meeting Usher kind of solidified that we subscribe to the mission that has longevity, that is rooted in truth and grounded in fundamental principles, in that he was just like one of us. I mean, granted, he has multiple, it's not to debase or take away from or neglect his accolades, but it's one of those things where he was very relatable. He was very, in tune with Peloton. He was excited to be a part of the Peloton community, to talk about it. And it's all those things that many of us that are right here, right now, actually identify with. Many of us are in Facebook groups like, oh my God, you're talking to your friends like, I'm obsessed with my Peloton. Let me tell you what my instructor said. And he felt the same way in some capacity. And so that was one of the main things that when I walked away that evening, I was like, wow, this feels really good. Like, we're doing something epic here. We keep saying it, but it's true. And then in terms of the other things that I've taken away and I've been able to kind of like embody is just having fun. I think that he's been able to listen to his community. We as Peloton listened. I don't know if y'all saw John Foley's keynote. Emmy and I watched it together, and we were just like, all of these things that you all have asked for, this pause button that has been a thing. That's what Usher has done so well, right? And I was like, that's something that I want to continue to lean into, is making sure that I'm listening to the community, listening to what you need. How can we be of service and continue to hold space? And so I think that is exactly what it has like encompassed, or I've been able to hold on again to as I've left that conversation. And I'm excited to continue this with him, because I think that we can go even, instead of thinking of going wide with artists, like we're going to go deep with Usher. And I'm looking forward to going deeper with him with Dance Cardio, and continue to be of service and explore more about him, get to know more about his residency at Vegas. Can we get some of that information? And so, yeah, I think that those are a couple of things that I've carried with me since that live conversation.
I love that he is a Peloton member, and you can tell his excitement about, even on social media, like he's reposting, him taking the ride, and so just watching his excitement sort of validates all of our excitement in a way too, where it's like, this is not just a one-sided thing. Like, this is very much a collaboration, and he is a Peloton member. He's one of us, so it is very cool to watch that. So we have a couple questions from our lovely members who are tuning in and typing in. I do want to ask one personal question though. The candle in the video, did Usher bring that candle? What was the scent? Was it a soy candle? Did he make it himself? Is that a handmade candle?
I'm going to give him all the props. I'm going to give him all the props. This is one of my favorite stories, because I do think it set the tone for the interview. Again, going back to, many of you know me as high energy. It's natural. I can't help it, nor will I try. But, him really setting the mood and setting the tone is when I walked into his trailer, I noticed the candle just lit there, like literally lit, right? We're sitting there, we're talking and healing. He's like, "How are you, Allie?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm good. How are you, Usher?" Like, I'm starting to match his vibe a little bit. And all of a sudden, when we sit down to have the conversation, I look down, we're getting last touches and getting all the zhuzh and all that stuff, getting a little hydration station going. And I look down and I see that exact candle. And I'm like, wow, this candle smells good. Is this, I had to ask, I said, "Is this your candle, or did someone put it?" He's like, "No." He's like, "No, it's my candle." And I was like, "Oh, okay, tell me more about this candle. Why do we have a candle? I've never done an interview with a candle." And he's like, "Well, I bring the candles to set with me because it really does set the vibe." And so throughout this entire conversation, I will say, not only did it smell good, but I think that when we talk about neuromuscular connection, like the concept of all the five senses being aware and turned on was there. Like having that scent, it was like our moment, our scent. And he's like, "Yeah, I brought this so it could be our scent." And I was like, "Thank you very much, Usher. You're so cool." But the reality is, I could not remember the scent for the life of me. I couldn't. I don't know if it was a soy candle, Emmy. I didn't pick it up, so I promise. I'm pretty sure Usher's at home right now making candles, singing, "You got it, bad." Like, I'm pretty sure.
That's how I like to think of him.
Yes. This morning, it came to me. The scent was gardenia.
Oh,
it was gardenia.
Love gardenia.
Yeah, I know. Now it's my new favorite smell.
Allie, I need to ask a member question. We only have a minute left, and I got to get this question in. Okay, he talked about making mistakes matter. Have you ever made a mistake during a class, and what did you do in that moment, and how did you play it off?
Oh my gosh, how many mistakes? I've made multiple mistakes in class. Absolutely. I think, we're only human. It's a gift, not a curse. And so in terms of making mistakes, I've definitely cued at one point. I will cue the wrong cadence for a song because I think it's the next song. And what I'll do is I'll have you in the wrong cadence, and now here's my secrets. Cats out of the bag. No cats are in bags, but just for lack of a saying,
no cats in bags.
All cats are breathing normally. I'll cue the wrong cadence for a track, and then all of a sudden, like, let's say the cadence of the song is 100, and I'm like 60 to 70 cadence because I think it's a climb coming. And then I realize that and I'm hitting the beat, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is 100 cadence. And I'm like, all right, take this walk in your flat road to a sprint and just release it. Let it go. Like, I literally will wrap it into a pretty bow. But I think this concept that he said of just like making mistakes intentional, like being intentional around the mistakes, it makes it easy for me to pivot. So I don't stress out about it. I just shift. I just pivot. I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah. And he also mentioned, like being so, like knowing it so well that you can get in that flow state. So if a mistake happens, you're like, I'm already in the zone, like in and out. Like you can just like hit that flow back again. So I love that. Anyway, Allie, thank you so much I chat with you all the time, but it's so fun to chat with you and with all the members, This is so fun. And I loved the interview. So thank you so much for doing the interview, for sharing it with us, for sharing this space with me here. I really love some of these takeaways of like, make mistakes matter. I love when Usher and you talked about fitness and music are meant to be. It's like a hand in a glove, and I couldn't agree with that more. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody tuning in, and make sure to tune in to all of our homecoming classes, events. Allie, you've got a class coming up tomorrow, I think.
Today, actually, I have a 4:30 bar class. You may or may not hear a little bit of Usher, so I'm going to put that in there. And before we go, I do want to say I would be remiss if I didn't say, Emmy, I'm so proud of you. Great job in having this conversation and holding space for this conversation. You have been incredible in our friendship, but more so, it's great to see you as someone who's been a part of your career for the last 15 years and this journey. So I am so proud of you and honored to have this conversation. And we'll have it in front of the camera many more times. And of course, always off camera, girl.
Thank you, Allie. Love you so much. And see you guys soon. See you on the leaderboard.
Bye, everyone.